Okay guys, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Now, fasten your seatbelts. Here we go. Alright guys, I'm back. It's Thursday, September 3rd, and it's 11:05 p.m. I know, getting a late start. That is my excuse every night, and, well, I'm going to stick to it. Alright guys, well, make yourselves comfortable, settle in, put your feet up, get yourself a beverage, and just relax. Here we go. All right, now I do want to thank a couple people before we begin, and I'm so grateful that so many of you have taken me up on the offer to switch from Patreon to Coffee. They do have a choice there where you can do just a one-time donation or a monthly donation. And the thing with Coffee is that 100% of it goes to the creator. So if you give $3, I get $3, whereas Patreon does keep some back for themselves. And also they support Black Lives Matter. So many of you said that you don't feel comfortable supporting me through Patreon because of that, and I completely get that. So anyway, this is a much better, you don't have to switch. If you're comfortable with Patreon, stay there. But anyway, we do have some people here to thank. Rebecca of Grandma Farm. Boy, you know what? Grandma Farm, that sounds very, very inviting, because I had grandparents that both had dairy farms, and I grew up on the farm. On the weekends and so forth, I would go to my grandparents' house, and I'm telling you, it's like the most amazing thing going to your grandparents' house. Grandma would make all sorts of berry pies and all sorts of things, and the food was just so delicious there. They cooked like old time. And anyway, I don't know why, but Rebecca of Grandma Farm, that reminded me of that, and they gave a monthly contribution, so thank you very much. Margot Creekmore, thank you, Margot. Heather, and she gave a monthly donation, and I don't think that's Heather H. from Houston, because she always goes by HH. Stacy Davidson, thank you very much, Stacy. And not sure how to pronounce this, but is it Mithridates, I think, or, well, let's just call it close anyway. And Tyler, and Mary. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate it very, very much. Now, I did say that I was going to do the Q today, and I haven't changed my mind. I have decided that I am going to cover Q, because there was a lot of information in it that was very interesting, to say the very least. So that's what we're going to do first, all right? And hopefully I'll have time left over. I know it's getting late, but I'm hoping to have time to do a second video as well about the news. All right, so settle back, and we are going to cover Q first here. And we'll go up to the top. Now, I'm starting off on September 2nd. This is the last post before that, I think, was August 26th. So we're starting here. Q gives us a link to follow, and said, files do not go missing unless 7th floor direct involvement. Follow the logs. Q. So let's, I'm going to read this by Lisa Mae Crowley. She is a great decoder, and I like her work, and it's always good to have other opinions. Link references privacy statement regarding the FBI automated case management system called Sentinel. I recalled an article referencing Sentinel regarding General Flynn's case and missing original 302 from the FBI interview with General Flynn. And remember, that 302 was missing. Powell argued, and the 302 is just simply the reference when the FBI go in and question somebody. They fill out a 302 that has the record of that conversation. Powell argued that there was no excuse for the FBI not to immediately produce the comprehensive redaction history, audit trail, and metadata for the Flynn 302, which the Sentinel system should automatically maintain. The FBI Sentinel system can retrieve any draft, Powell wrote. Drafts are numerically serialized when placed in the system. Those numbers, apparently redacted from the 302 drafts that have been produced, would probably provide further information. As Q says, Files don't go missing unless ordered by the 7th floor. And remember that post long ago, 7th floor, no more. So anyway, let's go take a look at this. And, well, let me see. It's saying that this is not valid, but I'm not sure why. Because that is the right. So let's just try it another way, because, you know, we're nothing if we're not flexible, right? Okay, let's see if we can find it this way. Here we go. Here we go. Privacy impact assessment for the Sentinel system. And let me see how long this is. I don't think I'm going to read this whole thing. In fact, I'm not. This is far too, but anyway, the Sentinel system maintains these records, and you know, like Q said, he is making the point that if something went missing, such as Flynn's 302, that it was ordered to go missing. That is the point of this entire post. So let's go back now and go on to the next. All right. And we are actually on drop 4629. We just finished 4628. And this is 4629, and we have a picture here from USA Today. Says how QAnon is radicalizing Americans. Yes, blame it on Q or blame it on Trump, because the left is never going to take responsibility for anything. And I think that we've seen that very plain. So this just shows this newspaper clipping, and it says corrupt, controlled enemies of the Republic. And of course, Q is talking about the mainstream media, which is absolutely both corrupt and controlled. It is the propaganda arm of the Democratic Party, as we've been told and as we can observe for ourselves. So Lisa Mae Crowley says, between the censorship and suspensions by big tech, the ramped up hit pieces on QAnon, condemnation by elected reps, Democrats and Republicans, and TV pundits, and more direct questions by reporters to POTUS, press secretary, and others in the Trump administration, expect a FF, we know what that is, soon, framing an alleged Q adherent, and calls for POTUS to condemn the entire movement. This is war. Now, that wouldn't surprise me at all, because you know when they start ramping up the Q attacks in the media, there's always somebody that's called a Q supporter and who's done something heinous. So you can just prepare yourselves for that, because they're not very inventive, the Democrats. They play the same games over and over and over again and expect that we're too stupid to figure it out. Anyway, from the USA Today garbage hit piece, billing itself as methodically rooting out a secret nationwide cabal of Democratic leaders who traffic children for sexual purposes, an accusation with no basis in reality, QAnon appeals to many ordinary Americans, including people on the political left and right, in a polarized age in which people often see those on the other side politically as despicable human beings. Well, I don't think there's too many people on the left in the QAnon movement. I've never seen them. There are some that have walked away from the Democrats that are part of the QAnon movement, but it's never been my experience to see that there are Democrats believing in Q. So, not current Democrats, maybe former Democrats, but all right, so let's move on. We are now on drop 4630. How is blackmail used? Democratic Illinois State Representative Keith Farnham has resigned and was charged with possession of child pornography and has been accused of bragging at an online site about sexually molesting a 6-year-old girl. Now, this is going to go down through the list of several people that have been both Democratic and Republican who have been caught in sex. I think that is my cat. They're playing with something loudly. So if you are hearing something, that's what it is. I need to get much quieter toys for the cats. Anyway, So this person, Keith Farnham, like, for example, these are not people that were just caught. These are people that have been caught, okay? Democratic spokesperson for the Arkansas Democratic Party, Harold Moody Jr., was charged with distribution and possession of child pornography. Democratic Radnor Township Board of Commissioners member Philip R. Resigned from his position after being charged with possession of child pornography and abusing children between 2 and 6 years old. Democratic activist and BLM organizer Charles Wade was arrested and charged with human trafficking and underage prostitution. Democratic Texas attorney and activist Mark Benavides was charged with having sex with a minor, including a child under 18, to have sex and compelling prostitution of at least 9 legal clients and possession of child pornography. He was found guilty on 6 counts of child trafficking. Democratic Virginia delegate Joe Morrissey was indicted on charges connected to his relationship with a 17-year-old girl and was charged with supervisory indecent liberties with a minor, electronic solicitation of a minor, possession of child pornography, and distribution of child pornography. Democratic Massachusetts Congressman Jerry Studs was censured by the House of Representatives after he admitted to an inappropriate relationship with a 17-year-old page. Democratic former mayor of Stillwater, New York, Rick Nelson, pled guilty to 5 counts of possession of child pornography of children less than 16 years of age. Democratic former mayor of Clayton, New York, Dale Kenyon, was indicted for sexual acts against a teenager. Democratic former mayor of Hubbard, Ohio, Richard Keenan, was given a life sentence in jail for raping a 4-year-old girl. Democratic former mayor of Winston, Oregon, Kenneth Barrett, was arrested for setting up a meeting to have sex with a 14-year-old girl who turned out to be a police officer. Democratic former mayor of Randolph, Nebraska, Dwayne L. Schutt, was arrested and charged with 4 counts of felony third-degree sexual assault of a child and 1 count of intentional child abuse. Democratic former mayor of Dawson, Georgia, Christopher Wright, was indicted on the charges of aggravated child molestation, aggravated sodomy, rape, child molestation, statutory rape of an 11-year-old boy and a 12-year-old girl. Democratic former mayor of Stockton, California, Anthony Silva, was charged with providing alcohol to young adults during a game of strip poker that included a 16-year-old boy at a camp for underprivileged children run by the mayor. Democratic former mayor of Millbrook, New York, Donald Briggs, was arrested and charged with inappropriate sexual contact with a person younger than 17. Democratic Party leader for Victoria County, Texas, Stephen Jabbour, pled guilty to possession and receiving over 500,000 child pornographic images. Democratic activist and fundraiser Terrence Bean was arrested on charges of sodomy and sex abuse in a case involving a 15-year-old boy, and when the alleged victim declined to testify, and the judge dismissed the case. Democratic Party chairman for Davidson County, Tennessee, Rodney Mullen, resigned amid child pornography allegations. Democratic activist Andrew Douglas Reed pleaded guilty to a multiple counts of second-degree sexual exploitation of a minor for producing child pornography. Democratic official from Terre Haute, Indiana, David Roberts, was sentenced to federal prison for producing and possessing child pornography, including placing hidden cameras in the bedrooms and bathrooms at a home he shared with two minor female victims. Q. Now, let's go right into the next. It's more of the same. All right, we are on drop 4631. Democratic California Congressman Tony Cardenas is being sued by LA County for allegedly sexually abusing a 16-year-old girl. Democratic aide to Senator Barbara Boxer, Jeff Rosado, pled guilty to charges of trading in child pornography. Democratic Alaskan State Representative Dean Westlake resigned from his seat after the media published a report alleging he fathered a child with a 16-year-old girl when he was 28. Democratic New Jersey State Assemblyman Neil Cohen was convicted of possession and distribution of child pornography. Republican Tim Nolan, chairman of Donald Trump's presidential campaign in Kentucky, pled guilty to child sex trafficking, and on February 11th, 2018, he was sentenced to serve 20 years in prison. Republican State Senator Ralph Shorty was indicted on 4 counts of human trafficking and child pornography. In November 2017, he pleaded guilty to 1 count of child sex trafficking in exchange for the dropping of the other charges. Republican anti-abortion activist Howard Scott Haldreth is a convicted child rapist in Florida. Republican County Commissioner David Schwartz pled guilty to molesting 2 girls under the age of 11 and was sentenced to 8 years in prison. Republican Judge Mark, I don't know if I can pronounce that last name, Pazuhanich, pleaded no contest to fondling a 10-year-old girl and was sentenced to 10 years probation. Republican anti-abortion activist Nicholas Morency pleaded guilty to possessing child pornography on his computer and offering a bounty to anyone who murders an abortion doctor. Republican legislator Edison Misla Aldarondo was sentenced to 10 years in prison for raping his daughter between the ages of 9 and 17. Republican Mayor Philip Giordano is serving a 37-year sentence in federal prison for sexually abusing 8 and 10-year-old girls. Republican campaign consultant Tom Shortridge was sentenced to 3 years probation for taking nude photographs of a 15-year-old girl. Republican Senator Strom Thurmond, a notable racist, had sex with a 15-year-old black girl, which produced a child. Republican pastor Mike Hintz, whom George W. Bush commended during the 2004 presidential campaign, surrendered to police after admitting to a sexual affair with a female juvenile. Republican legislator Peter Dibble pleaded no contest to having an inappropriate relationship with a 13-year-old girl. Republican Congressman Donald Buzz Lukens was found guilty of having sex with a female minor and sentenced to 1 month in jail. Republican fundraiser Richard A. Delgadio was found guilty of child porn charges and paying 2 teenage girls to pose for sexual photos. Republican activist Mark A. Gretchen, convicted on 6 counts of sex crimes involving children. Republican activist Randall David Ankeny pleaded guilty to attempted sexual assault on a child. Republican Congressman Dan Crane had sex with a female minor working as a congressional page. Republican activist and Christian Coalition leader Beverly Russell admitted to an incestuous relationship with his stepdaughter. Republican Congressman and anti-gay activist Robert Bauman was charged with having sex with a 16-year-old boy he picked up at a gay bar. Republican Committee Chairman Jeffrey Patty was arrested for distributing a video clip of a 5-year-old girl being raped. And on to the next. And we are on drop 4632. Republican activist Marty Glickman, aka Republican Marty, was taken into custody by Florida police on 4 counts of unlawful sexual activity with an underage girl and 1 count of delivering the drug LSD. Republican legislative aide Howard L. Brooks was charged with molesting a 12-year-old boy and possession of child pornography. Republican Senate candidate John Hathaway was accused of having sex with his 12-year-old babysitter and withdrew his candidacy after allegations were reported in the media. That is my cat, not yours. I know everybody that has a cat and is listening starts looking around thinking it's their cat. It's not. It's Sammy. Republican preacher Stephen White, who demanded a return to traditional values, was sentenced to jail after offering $20 to a 14-year-old boy for permission to perform oral sex on him. Republican talk show host John Matthews pleaded guilty to exposing his genitals to an 11-year-old girl. Republican anti-gay activist Earl Butch Kimmerling was sentenced to 40 years in prison for molesting an 8-year-old girl after he attempted to stop a gay couple from adopting her. Republican Party leader Paul Ingram pleaded guilty to 6 counts of raping his daughter and served 14 years in federal prison. Republican Election Board official Kevin Cohen was sentenced to 2 years probation for soliciting sex over the internet from a 14-year-old girl. Republican politician Andrew Burr was charged with 2 counts of first-degree sodomy with a 13-year-old boy. Republican politician Keith Westmoreland was arrested on 7 felony counts of lewd and lascivious exhibition to girls under the age of 16. Example, exposing himself to children. Republican anti-abortion activist John Allen Burt was charged with sexual misconduct involving a 15-year-old girl. Republican County Councilman Keola Childs pleaded guilty to molesting a male child. Republican activist John Butler was charged with criminal sexual assault on a teenage girl. Republican candidate Richard Gardner admitted to molesting his 2 daughters. Republican councilman and former Marine Jack W. Gardner was convicted of molesting a 13-year-old girl. Republican County Commissioner Merrill Robert Barter pleaded guilty to unlawful sexual content and assault on a teenage boy. Republican City Councilman Fred C. Smeltzer Jr. pleaded no contest to raping a 15-year-old girl and served 6 months in prison. Republican activist Parker J. Bina pleaded guilty to possession of child pornography on his home computer and was sentenced to 30 months in federal prison and fined $18,000. Republican parole board officer and former Colorado State Representative Larry Jack Schwartz was fired after child pornography was found in his possession. Republican strategist and Citadel Military College graduate Robin Vanderwall was convicted in Virginia on 5 counts of soliciting sex from boys and girls over the internet. Republican City Councilman Mark Harris, who is described as a good military man and churchgoer, was convicted of repeatedly having sex with an 11-year-old girl and sentenced to 12 years in prison. Republican businessman John Grunseth withdrew his candidacy for Minnesota governor after allegations surfaced that he went swimming in the nude with 4 underage girls, including his daughter. Republican director of the Young Republican Federation, Nicholas Elizondo, molested his 6-year-old daughter and was sentenced to 6 years in prison. Q. We are now on drop 4633. Republican benefactor of conservative Christian groups, Richard A. Dawson Sr. was charged with rape for allegedly paying a 15-year-old girl for sex. Dawson, 62, who is married with grown children and several grandchildren, has allegedly told police that over the past decade he paid more than $1 million to have sex with a large number of young women. Democratic donor and billionaire Jeffrey Epstein ran an underage child sex brothel and was convicted of soliciting underage girls for prostitution. Democratic New York Congressman Anthony Weiner pled guilty to transferring obscene material to a minor as part of a plea agreement for sexted and sending Twitter DMs to underage girls as young as 15. Democratic donor, activist, and Hollywood producer Harvey Weinstein has been criminally prosecuted and civilly sued for years of sexual abuse that was a well-known secret in Hollywood, including underage sexual activities with aspiring female actresses. Democratic activist and Me Too proponent Aisha Argento settled a lawsuit for sexual harassment stemming from sexual activities with an underage actor. Democratic mayor of Racine, Wisconsin, Gary Becker, was convicted of attempted child seduction, child pornography, and other child sex crimes. Democratic Seattle Mayor Ed Murray resigned after multiple accusations of child sexual abuse were levied against him, including by family members. Democratic activist and aide to New York City Mayor de Blasio, Jacob Schwartz, was arrested on possession of 3,000 plus child pornographic images. Democratic activist and actor Russell Simmons was sued based on allegations of sexual assault where he coerced an underage model for sex. Democratic governor of Oregon, Neil Goldschmidt, after being caught by a newspaper, publicly admitted to having past sexual relationship with a 13-year-old girl after the statute of limitations on the rape charges had expired. Democratic Illinois Congressman Mel Reynolds resigned from Congress after he was convicted of statutory rape of a 16-year-old campaign volunteer. Democratic New York Congressman Fred Richard was arrested in Washington, D.C. for soliciting sex from a 16-year-old boy. Democratic activist, donor, and director Roman Polanski fled the country after pleading guilty to statutory rape of a 13-year-old girl. Democrats and Hollywood actors still defend him to this day, including Whoopi Goldberg, Martin Scorsese, Woody Allen, David Lynch, Wim Wenders, Pedro Almodovar, Tilda Swinton, and Monica Bellucci. Democratic state senator from Alaska, George Jacko, was found guilty of sexual harassment of an underage legislative page. Democratic state representative candidate for Colorado, Andrew Myers, was convicted for possession of child pornography and enticing children. Democratic Illinois Congressman Gus Savage was investigated by the Democrat-controlled House Committee on Ethics for attempting to rape an underage female Peace Corps volunteer in Zaire. The committee concluded that while the events did occur, his apology was sufficient and took no further actions. I guess, yeah, just apologize and everything's fine. Right. Democratic activist, donor, and spokesperson for Subway, Jared Fogle, was convicted of distribution and receipt of child pornography and traveling to engage in illicit sexual contact with a minor. Democratic State Department official Carl Kerry, under Hillary Clinton's State Department, was arrested on 10 counts of child porn possession. Democratic Maine Assistant Attorney General James Cameron was sentenced to just over 15 years in federal prison for 7 counts of child porn possession and receipt and transmission. Democratic State Department official Daniel Rosen, under Hillary Clinton's State Department, was arrested and charged with allegedly soliciting sex from a minor over the internet. Democratic State Department official James Cafferty pleaded guilty to 1 count of transportation of child pornography. Democratic radio host Bernie Ward pled guilty to 1 count of sending child pornography over the internet. Democratic Deputy Attorney General from California Raymond Liddy was arrested for possession of child pornography. Q. Now, let's see what Lisa May Crowley has to say. With the sheer number of elected representatives and politicians in these 4 drops who have been charged with all of these vile crimes against children, isn't it fascinating that USA Today stated in its latest hit piece, billing itself as methodically rooting out a secret nationwide cabal of Democratic leaders who traffic children for sexual purposes, an accusation with no basis in reality. No basis in reality? Why haven't we heard about these monsters in the news? That's a good question, isn't it? Why haven't we? Well, I think we know. Q has repeatedly said they controlled these people through blackmail. Read past blackmail drops. This is not about religions or party affiliation. Evil is everywhere. There are no drawn lines, no boundaries, good versus evil. Now, this is from Sun Q2. Is the public awake? Did you know about the majority of the names of the Democratic Republican pedophile child rapists listed by Q in his latest drop? Did you read about their arrest or prosecution? I knew about a handful, and I'm a researcher who is awake. Hear about the arrest of most of these pedophiles. I guarantee the public doesn't know. This is my point. Thank God these rapists are being arrested and prosecuted, but the public isn't aware as to how many in politics have been arrested and charged. If they're not aware, they're not going to wake up. So that is Sun Q2, and we are on to the last drop from yesterday, September the 2nd, and this is 4634, and it says, why did it take a political outsider to finally confront China? Well, I would say that most of the people the politicians are already in bed with China. And I don't know. I also happen to think that he has lived his life above board, so he hasn't they haven't been able to blackmail him because they don't have anything to blackmail him on. Because believe me, if they did, they would have been trotting that out long before now. And you know, they've tried to make everything stick, and he is Teflon Don. It just falls off. And so that is why I believe, I don't think anybody, I really don't think that there is anybody in the government besides Donald Trump who could even confront China. So there you go. And in order to confront China, you would have to be clean of their blackmail and their, you know, pay to play, all that. So yeah, who else could do it except Donald Trump? So that is it for that video, and I am going to come back and do, it'll be a shorter video, but I am going to do a news video, so come on back. I'll be here. I hope you will be too. You guys have a wonderful night. Stay safe, stay well, stay blessed, and keep seeking truth. And why not come back here and seek it along with me? All right, guys, good night.